We have a liftoff.
All right, folks, welcome back. The Real Bourbon Bros are rolling with you. Another exciting podcast coming your way tonight, this evening, this morning, whenever you listen to us, really. We're just coming to your way with another exciting...
In your sleep,
well,
maybe.
That's kind of creepy, isn't it?
No, I mean, I really do. It puts me to, puts me to sleep
Right,
sometimes.
enough of you talking. I'm Gary, that's Steve. You know us well.
Hey,
Yeah,
I'm Steve.
We have Barry Brinegar with us from RD1 Spirits. You may have heard about them. Barry is the co-founder of RD1 Spirits and also the national brand champion for RD1. So, Barry, welcome aboard. Thanks for coming in and giving us a few minutes.
Thank you. Yeah. Thanks, man. I'm super excited to be here, talk about all things bourbon. And, I'm sure we're going to tell tall tales. We're going to laugh. We're going to cry. It's going to be a great night.
Hope not cry. Jeez. Well, cry over spilt
Tears
bourbon,
of joy.
maybe.
Tears of joy.
Yes, happy tears.
Or dropped bottles of bourbon.
Oh, no,
I
that's
think all of
tragic.
us have a story where a bottle has broken that we really have wanted it, and we won't go down that path right off the bat. But
Yeah.
Barry, thanks for giving
Yeah.
us a few minutes. Like
Yeah.
I said,
Blanton's.
oh yeah, the Blanton store pick. Yeah, anyway, that's another story. So thanks for coming in again. Like I said, give us a few minutes of your time this evening. We like to always start out with our guests of kind of giving them the floor to. And I'll give you a short introduction there, but if you want to add anything to that, how you came to RD1, a little bit of your personal story, and how do you got to your position right now, what do you do for RD1?
Yeah, I mean, I'm one of these people that I have reinvented myself multiple times, and I was a registered nurse, worked in the operating room. I found that I enjoyed talking to people better, and I went to a implantable device company, Medtronic. Did clinical stuff for them, did sales for them, and then migrated over. I did pharmaceutical sales. I've owned my own digital marketing company. I started following this club around called the Lexington Bourbon Society, and fell in love with bourbon. And so I own this digital marketing company, and I would meet with local business owners for 10 minutes. I would be talking about how important it was to be seen, heard, and found online, so that your customers can find you, telling your story. And then inevitably, the conversation would always go to bourbon. And I met enough business owners who said, you probably should get in the bourbon business. And the first event that I did with the Lexington Bourbon Society, I have Jimmy Russell and his wife there, and so I'm just like, I'm nerding out. I mean, he's a rock star. Anybody that knows bourbon knows Jimmy Russell. He's got just decades of knowledge of bourbon, and so a couple of co-founders and myself wrote a business plan. The first person we talked to gave us what we were asking for. I met, fortunately, the next day with an angel investor. Mike Tedderton and Marcia Couch, and they're serial entrepreneurs. They started 27 companies. They're worth $60-70 million, and they told me I'm not asking for enough money, and I laughed at their face. And fortunately,
give me more, please.
Yeah, fortunately, I had a CFO at the time who was risk averse to bringing in more money, and we're like, why? This business, we're going to need money. And so we had a product on the shelf. We started in January of 2020. COVID, so a global pandemic ensues. We get liquid, we get cost of goods, corks, bottles, labels. We have a product on the shelf in October of 2020, and 3 months later, Mike's words came ringing true. We ran out of money, and our whole business model was based on majority of brand destination gift shop sales. And what happens during COVID? You don't have any visitors that come to your gift shop, so we had to flip the script, and we adjusted that model to majority distribution and just a little bit gift shop sales. But just this month, we're opening up our brand new brand destination in Lexington on Main Street. So we will have 10,000 square feet. We'll be distilling there. We'll have a wood finish lab. We'll talk more about that, during the show here. But super excited to see things come full circle. And I'll talk about the journey as we go through the evening tonight. But really appreciate the opportunity to talk about RD1.
Yeah. Well, I'm just a little known company. I mean, I just saw RD1 in the local liquor hole here just 2 years ago or something like that. and so I told the store owner, Calvin, which you've met Calvin there in the Novi Party Store.
Great
so I said, yeah, well, and Amberana wood finish was just coming out, and that was getting really big. So I grabbed that one. I grabbed some other ones, which you may know some other brands there that are still doing that finish, and I was just really impressed with that. And then I'm not sure how it came about that. He said, "Oh, I'm doing an RD1 store pick," and I kept on asking every week when I went in there, "When's that RD1 coming in? When's that RD1 coming in?" And then when I came in, it was just another line of great store picks that he's had in that store. So
yeah, Calvin's a great guy. Fortunate that a really good friend of mine, Alfonso and Lucy.
I know Alfonso.
Great couple. I met them a year ago down at the New Orleans Bourbon Festival, and true to form, the bourbon community is a very small community. So I knew I was coming up there, and I said, hey, let's go out to dinner. And when I went up there, he said, oh, by the way, Calvin's got your barrel pick, and I'm like, well, I need to go in there and do a bottle signing for him. So that's fortunately it was just spur of the moment thing where I was able to go in and meet Calvin and do the barrel select and bottle signing.
Oh, that's awesome! Yeah, I think I have one right here.
Oh, I see some bottles back there.
I think I showed this to Gary here. Cheers to the Real Bourbon Bros.
Yeah. I gotta get one.
So and there's your. Yeah, but yeah, I have definitely some other ones here. The one that's not signed, of course, but
there you go.
That one's the open one, and then your small batch with
the green label.
Yep, the double finished oak and maple, and then the Amberana.
Love it. Well, thanks for the support.
Yeah.
Absolutely, these have been sitting, and I've been.
He's been prepping for the show. You can tell.
No.
Yeah, me too.
Not yet tonight. Although, Barry, I did see something in your Glencairn. What might that be?
So I am actually drinking Yellowstone Toasted Barrel, 100 proof. Stephen Beam, Stephen Fonte are good friends of mine, and Jay Ballard here. He's got a welcome center and has all kinds of bottles here. So when we come together, we don't just break out the good stuff for anybody, but for ourselves, we'll break it out.
Very nice.
Very cool. Yeah, I think I have the toasted one myself.
I have that one too somewhere.
Yeah.
Finishing series. Yeah.
I have a quick question for you. I'm a historian by nature. I was a teacher of history way back in a former life before I
reinvented himself again.
In the medical community.
Just like most of us.
I love the history of any company or anybody we have on, the company they're representing, they're working for. So, I can read so much information online about RD1. And for those folks who do not know the RD1 name, it was RD1 was the 1865 first Federal Registered Distillery in Lexington, Kentucky, given the designation of RD number 1 for tax district number 7. And then William Tarr, I know we read about William Tarr. He was very important in the company. Do you guys really lean into a lot of that history, and that's really something you push? Obviously, it's in your name, so it's something you're very proud of, I assume.
If you look at my jacket here, William Tarr.
William Tarr Distillery.
Yeah. So when we first came to market in January of 2020, we named ourselves the William Tarr Distillery. And as we launched that brand, and that was just a limited release, coming out, paying honor and respect to Lexington's first entrepreneurs that started the first registered distillery. The distillery was actually called the Ashland Distillery. And so when you look at the registered distillery, RD1, we now, after Prohibition, know distilleries are registered by DSP, Distilled Spirits Plant. So the RD was that tax designation. And what we wanted to do is we wanted to tell that whole history. So tell the story of Lexington's first registered distillery, and then write that next chapter. So in our new brand destination, you'll be able to do a tour. You'll be able to see some of the archives from Lexington's first registered distillery. And if you look at the bottle, the bottle tells a story of historical proportions. So the neck label has a tree on it. The tree represents Ashland Distillery. Ashland had a tree on its label. Yep. And my partners and I are from Lexington, Kentucky, so we have Kentucky born and raised. Embossed on the bottle. The bottle shape itself is based off of an 1800 squat bottle that we physically have in our inventory. That'll be displayed. And then at the bottom of that bottle, there's a 4-plank horse fence. And if you know anything about thoroughbred horses, if you see a 4-plank horse fence, you're probably in Lexington, Kentucky, and there's $1 million horses behind that fence.
Yeah, that's
I did not
it's
know
amazing
about the
country,
fence.
just driving around Kentucky from distillery to distillery and just seeing all that. For somebody who didn't grow up there nor live there, it's pretty it's quite the attraction. I mean, obviously the bourbon's number one, but it's not a bad view driving from distillery to distillery.
You put a lot of thought into that bottle, by the way. And just having you describe it, a lot of when we had a segment on here, and we would call it, the wow factor after we've finished doing a blind tasting, maybe, or looking at a bottle and revealing what the bottle is. And the wow factor, one of it is the bottle shape and how it stands out on a shelf and everything.
It is, yeah.
And you've got so many intricate details on this that you just explained that I had never even
picked up
thought about and knew until you picked them out. So a lot of thought went into that, I'm sure.
Yeah, thank you. The other thing that you talked about is how's that history being represented in the tour, in the whole RD1 experience. And so we really do want to lean into that history. And I just attended the James B. Beam Institute training. It's a conference that occurs every year at the University of Kentucky. And so this is an academic conference. The people that come there, it's not. It's more related to research and development within the distilled spirits industry. And I attended a talk by a coroner, or I'm sorry, a mortician. And she has her executive bourbon steward. She does these dark tours. So a dark tour is based on going to a cemetery and seeing seeing one of the bourbon barons' tombstone, or even on different tragedies that may have occurred within the industry. And I was so enamored with that. I went up to her afterwards and I said, I love what you're doing, because it's respectful. It's not a, Instagram, cheesy moment. It's really a respectful kind of tour that she does. And I said, I love that. We have several opportunities to do a dark tour with RD1, and so I'm going to develop this. I've got some bricks. I've got some mementos that are from William Tarr's mansion that was in Bourbon County in Paris, Kentucky. And so, I reached out to her. I'm going to develop a dark tour experience that's really based on the history. So I love that you asked about that. People like you and I, we love that history. I've taken a deep dive, and so I'm the brand historian. People come to me. They're like, all right, can you help us understand a little bit more about the history? And so I was doing a PowerPoint presentation, to present to our employees and people that wanted to understand the history. And I just so happened to find a gold medal that was from 1904 that Bond and Lillard, that was a part of RD1 back in the day, won at that Louisiana World Exposition Fair in St. Louis. And don't you know that gold medal was available online, and I bought it. So I've got the original gold medal from 1904 that Bond and Lillard won. So we've got some really interesting memorabilia that kind of talk about the history, but we're all about writing
Yep.
that next chapter. And so what we're doing, we've got a wood scientist. This guy has his PhD in wood maturation from the University of Kentucky. He's now our named research and development master distiller. We affectionately call him Dr. Wood, and I love that. He is so smart, but he can come down to your level and talk with you on a level that you can understand. But we're taking the art of bourbon to not only the art perspective, but the scientific perspective. So our wood finishing is going to be reproducible because he's going to be able to do the ratio and proportions, and he's reaching out to get some wood that a lot of other people haven't done. You're going to see, in fact, this Thursday, we're getting ready to test samples for a new LTO, limited time offering, that's going to come out in the fall. We are getting ready to release a new LTO to the market. It should come out. It's getting bottled right now, so it should come to the market in a month, 2 months. It's 1,500 cases. It is a burr rye, so it is an 8-year Kentucky straight rye and a 7 and 5-year Kentucky straight bourbon that's finished in Mizunara wood and French oak. We lovingly call this LTO Sister Cities because Lexington has a sister city in France and in Japan, and it's 102 proof.
Nice.
It is the most balanced from the aroma all the way to the finish. I believe this one is going to win best in class, best in show when we produce this, into these competitions. Right now, all of our core 4 expressions has won over 125 major medals over the last 2.5 years. These are double gold, double platinum, Century awards. So we've got a good strategy in producing good products and getting good feedback.
If you
from
need
them.
any taste testers or samplers of any
Yeah,
of this,
yeah, of course,
I twist my arm.
One
I'll
piece
send
here.
you a sample. I'll send you a sample.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll give you my Michigan address, and
Nice.
I might send one to Gary.
You might. I see how,
No,
see
I
how
will.
it is.
You get a lot of samples.
Well, yeah. I'm even a contact,
So this is for the finishing. So two other questions that just came into my mind. You talk about over in Lexington there. The buildings that you're in now, are those historic or are those part of the RD1 or?
I love that question. So we were in the Pepper Rick House before we moved out and built our new brand destination. So the new brand destination is a new build, not historic. The only location that is still tied to the brand that's still standing today is the Manchester Music Hall, and that's right there on Manchester Street. And the distillery had a couple of distillery fires in the 1870s, so it burnt down when it was the Ashland Distillery. So William Tarr and his partner Thomas McGibbon rebuilt it, and then they renamed it the William Tarr Distillery. So the Manchester Music Hall, which is still standing, was rebuilt in 1879. And so that was bonded warehouse number 1 for the brand. Now, historically, how important is that? It's very important to the brand. We talked to the owner of that building, and he said our valuation was out of whack for him coming in to own a piece of RD1, and it just wasn't going to work. I mean, he had he wanted a little bit more of the business than we were able to give away. So, for us, it would have been great. It would have been historic, but, at the end of the day, it's got to work for everybody. And unfortunately, that just didn't work out.
And you are writing the next chapter. You
Right.
are trying to move
Exactly.
forward and modernize it and everything else. So you talk about the different wood finishes. So the spirits are sourced.
Yep.
Are they MGP?
I can tell you.
Or?
I can tell
Yes.
you. So, do you all know Jacob Call?
Jacob?
Jacob Call, 8th generation master distiller. He was with Green River. So the bottles that came from the barrels he laid down when he was at Green River. And now he's at the Western Kentucky Distilling Company, and my partner Mike Tedderton is a 49% owner of that distillery. So Jacob is our named master distiller. He's laying down all of our new makes. So our Kentucky straight bourbon is Jacob's. We take that straight bourbon and then we wood finish it. So we put our own spin on the wood finish series, but the straight bourbon comes from Jacob Call. Jacob Call comes from Paris, Kentucky. So he's 8th generation. I have to believe that Jacob's family and William Tarr probably knew each other, probably worked together in some form or another. William Tarr owned the Chicken Cock distillery that was in Paris before he sold that and then bought the Ashland distillery. And I should mention Thomas McGibbon. T.J. McGibbon, you may not know this name, but he was the first Kentucky Distillers Association president when that organization was founded in 1880. So I've got an image of McGibbon on a barrelhead. I've got the KDA logo. I gave it to Eric Gregory, the current KDA president. Super excited about that. But our brand really holds a lot of history as it relates to Kentucky bourbon. I'm a Kentucky bourbon. I preach the gospel of Kentucky bourbon wherever I go. And, you can make bourbon anywhere in the United States. And I'm jokingly saying this, but if you want it to sell, you make it out of Kentucky.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. In Green River is getting some fantastic bottles out of there too. Yeah.
Have y'all had the new weeded mash bill that they've released, the single barrel?
No.
Not yet.
My God, it is so good. It's complex.
Nice. I'll
it
put
is
that
so
on the
good.
list. Long list.
The last one I got was the foolproof.
Yeah.
Yep.
I got a
That
start
was
pick of that
really
one.
fantastic.
Yeah, that's really great.
Yeah.
I have a quick question here about the finishes and how those have. I know every company has different finishes. So specifically, the straight bourbon whiskey with the double finish in oak and maple barrels. How did that one come to be? What's the origin story of that? I love a good, the sweetness finish.
Yeah.
I just think that's a great combination there.
Yep. Yeah, and so you got to think. I have to believe that we're in that 10% of bourbon consumers. I lovingly call us self-proclaimed bourbon experts because we drink a lot of bourbon. We know a lot about bourbon because we consume a lot of it. But there's that 90% people that are new to bourbon, have a palate that's not really quite ready for straight from the barrel, uncut, unfiltered. So this oak and maple is really made for that 90% group. It's made for I hate to say the female palate because there's some women that have a palate that exceeds my palate.
It is a sweet.
It is very sweet. So the way that we do that, we use our French oak staves. The French oak staves are new French oak staves that are heavily toasted. There's a process where maple syrup from Vermont is seeped onto those staves. And then we have a time, temperature, and pressure process that we push that maple into the wood. So there's no physical liquid maple that's going into that barrel. Right. But when you nose the oak and maple, unmistakable, it is maple, the essence of maple syrup on the aroma. You're at Cracker Barrel and you're sitting in front of a stack of flapjacks and you're pouring that warm maple syrup over the flapjacks. But on the palate is more butterscotch. The palate is not as sweet as the aroma tells you it's going to be. It's still sweet. It's still butterscotch, but it's not maple forward. It's more butterscotch, and then there's this pecan note that comes from the toasted French oak, and then there's a little cracked peppercorn on the back end. It makes a fabulous smoked maple old fashioned. Absolutely wonderful.
You don't even have to have dessert after that. It's perfect.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Well, you know how you do sensory tastings and you do complementary tastings or inverse tastings. I do a smoked pork belly. And I take the smoked pork belly. It's absolutely delicious. I make a peanut butter maple sauce reduction for the pork belly, and then I pair that with the oak and maple. Absolutely killer. It's so good. It makes a great smoked maple old fashioned. If you do I like walnut bitters. I like a little smoke in my cocktail, but ultimately, I'm an uncut,
Yep.
unfiltered, thief straight from the barrel kind of
We are
guy.
too.
Ah,
Yeah,
answers another question we had. Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. Foreshadowing.
So have you done any? It was interesting that you described the process of infusing, whatever, uh, you know, taste you're trying to get into that wood with the Amburano finishes. So right now, I mean, I'll tell you, I got like 3 bottles of that. One bottle I had to give to my manager because I sent up a little sample. I visited him and I had a little sample, and he liked it so much. He says, "I got to get this." And even when I tasted it, and he had the same impression, it's apple pie, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like grandma's apple pie, or those little apple pie you have in your lunches for a treat every once a year, maybe growing
McDonald's
up,
apple
maybe.
pies too.
Yeah.
So, have you tried infusing like other uh, taste into that wood besides maple syrup? I mean, like,
Yes, yes. There's some other types of things that we're using
syrups.
to syrups.
Yeah.
I think that what interests me, the hard part is you got to get government approval on that label. And there's only so many woods that the TTB recognizes that is safe for consumption in consumers. And so, you
Won't
see
be
you see a
toxic.
lot of innovation going on, but if it's not been done yet, we have to create the case to TTB to approve that label. So
Got
that's
it.
that's
Hurdle.
the only
Ah,
hindrance
The
that
government.
you
right.
have.
So
That the
Yeah.
government.
you can be creative, but up to a certain
Yeah.
spot, you better not ask for forgiveness. You better
Settle
do
down.
it right.
That's right. That's
Okay.
right.
All right.
So I'm just looking at your website here with all the different bottles of RD1, and I mean it's how do we get our hands on this single barrel 12-year cast strength here? How do we do we talk to you about that or?
Yeah, yeah. Did you see the
Yeah,
MSRP on
exactly.
that? Okay. So if you want one, you need to let me know because there's only
Really? Yeah.
265 bottles
Wow.
of it,
Oh,
and
what?
when we launch, and it's gift shop only,
Okay.
but
Exactly.
a guy that's at the gift shop. I mean, if you want it, I can
Okay.
reserve,
Wow.
up to 5 bottles.
Wow. That's pretty sweet. 5 times. Okay. I did the math there.
Yes, you can do 5 bottles of 5 bottles per person.
I mean, I might make an exception for you guys.
Oh gosh.
That thing looks like a treat. I assume you've
Li-
had it.
li- Listen,
Yeah.
it is
Yeah.
phenomenal. I mean, think of, and again, Legacy Kentucky Distillery, 12-year. It's at a barrel
Yeah.
strength, so they're ranging anywhere from 121 to 127 proof. They are phenomenal. I've had this before, and some of them had a little bit of heat, and they needed a little bit of water to
Yeah.
tamp that down. These are the best of the best. These are uncut,
Nice.
unfiltered. They don't need
Yeah.
anything. They just need you to open
Some
them up
love.
and put them in a glass
Yeah.
and drink them.
Yeah. 121, I think, to 127 proof it ranges from here, according to the website.
Yeah,
So that's
yeah.
top of the line then. That looks like a nice packaged little box that comes with it and everything.
Which one did you call that? There's a limited release.
No, the single barrel
yours-
Kentucky Straight Bourbon, the 12-year cast strength. It comes in a box.
Yeah, it's in a crystal
Yeah, it looks
decanter.
really
Yeah,
beautiful.
nice
That is
bottle.
Nice. Yeah, that
Beautiful.
does look nice.
I'll
Yeah.
even sign it for you.
Steve,
Then we wouldn't want to open it, Barry. Come on.
No.
You got to have 2 bottles. One that's signed, one that we can
Thank
drink.
you. Thank you. I agree with that. So Jimmy Russell, the first time I met him at that meeting that I was telling you about earlier, I bought a bottle of 101, and he looks at it. He's like, 101. What made you get this? I'm like, Jimmy, I don't know. I got the bottle because
Right.
I thought Wild Turkey is 101, and I think that's his favorite
Really?
expression. I think that's his favorite. Yeah, he likes that 101 proof, and I think that's what he's kind of proud of most. And so I've got his signature on that bottle. But Jimmy will tell you, listen, I'm going to sign this, but you got to promise me you're going to open it. And I'm like, yes, Jimmy, I'm going to open it. I'm going to drink it. But in the Lexington Bourbon Society, we have this bottle chroming process. So every one of our bottles that are special bottles, we chrome them, and they're like a trophy that's put up on our trophy case.
Interesting.
Yeah, I love the rare breed.
Yeah.
I mean, that's next level too. That's
Yeah.
next level.
Have you all had the single rickhouse?
No. Oh,
I
yeah,
have not.
I have had it, but I don't have a bottle. I had it, maybe last year. Yeah. No. Yeah.
Yeah, so the single rickhouse, you understand what that is. That is uncut, unfiltered barrel strength, and before that, they never produced anything that was at barrel strength. And so that one, I did a tasting with our little club, and we had the Russell's 15, we had 2 single rick houses, and then we had some Russell Reserve barrel picks, and so number one, the 15-year won out of all of them, but those 2 single rick houses were now, of course, we're a bunch of guys that like high proof, so obviously we're going to gravitate to the high proof. We don't have delicate palates. We burned out our whole
other
chemical
taste buds
receptors.
and other receptors. Yeah. So, well, one of the questions was, like out of all the spirits out there, what is your favorite and best? And it sounds like it's bourbon cask strength. Is that right?
It is. I actually bought, so I do a lot of the barrel picks, and I'm sequentially thieving out of some of these barrels. And when you do a barrel pick and you put a straight bourbon in with a wood finish at barrel strength, there's no comparison in the difference between just a straight bourbon, uncut, unfiltered, and then the wood finish. The wood finish, bourbon gets 50 to 70% of its flavor from wood. We're just changing the equation with the wood finish. So what I was noticing is I think I keep hearing this ding in my. Sorry about that, guys.
Don't hear
it. So what I noticed was that this barrel was blossoming into a honey barrel. And a honey barrel, if you all know, is just a barrel for whatever reason, the airflow, the temperature was all right. And this thing, it was 5 years old, but it had those dark cherry notes, a more mature flavor note. I bought that whole barrel. It was 122 proof. And so Brent Elliott, the master distiller for Four Roses, he was at an event, and I'm like, Brent, tell me what you think of this bottle. And he tasted it. He's like, oh my God, that's awesome. He said, this is a good barrel. And I'm like, okay, I don't need anybody else's approval. Yeah. Master distiller Brent Elliott said this is a great bottle. I'm good. But I did submit it to the New York International Spirits Competition. It won gold. And then y'all know Irene Tran out of the Northeast. She is a female master palate. Her palate is probably better than Nancy Fraley, Nancy the Nose's nose. And so I took my bottle along with 18 other bottles up to her when she was in town in Louisville for the Bourbon Women's Symposium. So we're 7 a.m. sitting in this hotel, and we got all these samples out there. The one that she tasted was this my barrel pick. She's like, oh my God, Barry, this is so balanced. And I'm like, thank you, Nancy, or Irene, thank you so much. And she also tasted the 12-year that's coming out. Those were the 2 that rose to the very top of her. And she does this, if you're familiar with whiskey somms, they do this, and master blenders, they do this grid. And this grid is representative of flavors that you get on the palate. And so she's sitting there writing and shading in. I'm like, what kind of voodoo is this? But I'm like, Irene, I need you to teach me this. So she's a good friend. I love her dearly. I only interacted with her a couple of times, but she's someone who I very much respect and look forward to her input.
That's great that people in the community to reflect that off of, talk to samples that you've picked. That's a great way to get the perfect product. And I know we talked a little bit about not a little bit, but a lot about the juice. That's the important thing, the whiskey. But you did mention this a little bit earlier, and I just want to come back to it. coming in late spring here, 2025, at the Commons in Lexington. You're going to have your new distillery. That looks. I'm looking at the mock-up right now online. That looks like a really sweet-looking new building there. It's going to have everything everybody needs to have a great time learning about RD1 and all your products. Do you want to talk a little bit about that and what that all entails and when the opening day is there?
Yeah, so it's right now we're getting the final touches on it, and so we're a little behind on the landscaping and the infrastructure, but it's pretty much completed. We just I think we're just pushing back our ribbon cutting from May 8th to the 15th of May. That'll be our official ribbon cutting. And so in that location, it's 10,000 square feet. You'll be able to come in. We'll be distilling there, but it's a small hybrid still that we're going to be doing our R&D. And if we find a mash bill that we're really super excited about, we'll be producing that at the Western Kentucky Distilling Company on a column still. But there'll be a wood science lab. You'll be able to come in. You'll be able to taste anywhere from 10 to 15 different experimental wood finishes. And then you'll be able to thieve straight from the barrel. You can fill a 200 ml or a 750 ml bottle your own of any of the expressions that we've got available. My hope is that and I'm selfishly I'm trying to figure out this national market. The national market. You look at. Michigan has a different flavor profile than Texas does, and so I'm trying to figure out a region-specific wood finish, and we would only make this wood finish to the Michigan market or the Texas market. You look at Old Forester mesquite wood; it is it's only released once a year in Texas. And so I'd like to do the same thing, but as a retailer, you can come in just like the Maker Select program. You can come in and we can taste through different stave finishes, and then we can just lay your own barrel down and then give you samples. You tell us when it's finished for your palate. We'll bottle it and send it to you. So super exciting. With we're young, we're new, and we're a very nimble group. So we can kind of turn very quickly to meet market demand where a big legacy brand doesn't have that capability.
It seems like a good next trend. On the show we do talk about what's the next trend, and store picks
finishes
10, 12 years ago. And and it sounds like you're on the verge of maybe creating another trend, I should say. But it seems rather interesting. The having that customer experience, the customers being like the store owners or something, or maybe a bourbon club, whatever, and they come in, and having the control over the maturity of a bourbon, which is a lengthy time when you talk about aging something in a barrel. But then after that, or are you talking about the finishing process, or both?
So the everything that we do right now, except for a couple of one-offs, it's in the existing American oak barrel. But we've done some different collaborations with a local brewery where they finished some Dunkel beer in one of our bourbon barrels, and then they've given us the barrel back, and we finished some bourbon in an ex Dunkel beer finish cask, and absolutely fabulous. We've done a blackberry wine cask finish, and so a secondary cask. The one thing that I'll tell you about what's happening on the bourbon trail is it's experiential. When you look at doing a bourbon tour, you can see this is how we mash, this is how we ferment, this is how we distill. You can see that a couple of times, and then you could give the tour. But it's that next step. It's the bourbon and it's bourbon and a 4-star restaurant at Bardstown Bourbon Company. It's bourbon and entertainment at Log Still Amphitheater. So what we're building in the Commons is not only, we're the anchor tenant there, but we have a 2,000 person capacity amphitheater. So where we're located is just a mile and a half down from Rupp Arena that gets frontline headliners. Those headliners want to come to these intimate venues the day before or the day after
Warm up.
they do a concert. Yep. So what we have, our outside location overlooks that outdoor theater and amphitheater. So we're really looking to continue to lean into what we call the napification of the bourbon trail. It's experiential. Bourbon just it's the lubricant that makes everything that much better.
Steve, I think we're going to be taking a trip to Lexington here.
Yeah, I think it's going to be you talk about the Napa Valley, and now you have the Bourbon Mountains, or whatever you want to call them, but the Bourbon Boulders. I don't know. So, I mean, it's those, and then you have we had the Bourbon Trail, but I'm not sure. It does need something like what you're describing there, Barry, and it's kind of exciting to have that. I mean, if you're having a like intimate event with maybe a musical artist down there or something, and you can have drinks and everything, a very custom
experience.
Personal experience there would be. I mean, that's what you're looking for. I mean, that'd be great.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, you guys have to come down. Make
course.
sure to get in touch with me. We'll just schedule your all's trip when I'm going to be here in town. As you all know, you may have heard me say I'm traveling 42 weeks out of the year.
We'll
so let's coordinate that, because the tour that Barry gives you is going to be a whole lot different.
Oh.
Yeah.
We were fortunate, and you talk about tours. We were fortunate to have Freddie Johnson when we went to the Berry Pit.
Berry Pit?
The Berry Pit. No, not the Berry Pit.
Yeah,
the Buffalo
He's
Trace.
working at the Berry Pit now?
Yes.
Oh, man. That's disappointing.
Trace. Yeah, so I'm you talk about tour guides. We were fortunate, and then we were just like, wow, I can't imagine. We did a barrel pick down there with Kelvin.
You may be looking for a job now that it was flooded. Too soon?
Too soon.
Well,
they'll bounce back.
They will.
That distillery has flooded many times. This is historic. Flooding is more historic than 78. Freddie's a good friend of mine, and Freddie comes over to our house. We drink, and let me tell you, if you've not seen Neat the Story of Bourbon, I have a feeling you guys have seen it already. But Freddie on there, he talks about, I don't bring out my best bourbon for anybody, but if I bring out my best bourbon, you're obligated to hear the pain that I went through in getting that bottle and the whole story behind it. Yeah, but the other thing that he does, and I love this, and you guys should add this, when you do a tasting with friends and you open that special bottle, go ahead and get a pen out, date it, and then have everybody sign it, because then you have a memory moment of, oh my God, I remember when we all got together on this date, and I forgot that they were there, and Missy, man, she drank a little bit too much, but it creates this memory moment that's really super cool.
And I think, Steve, that's one of his big points about just getting into the whiskey community with myself, and just the stories that it brings. Having the family connection obviously is big, but having that bottle, tying it to an experience, tying it to a smell, a campfire, or a taste of the whiskey, or something you had before the whiskey or after, just that experience. And that's kind of what makes that whiskey special, not only the taste but also the experience surrounding that bottle. So Steve's big on that, I know, and I am too, obviously.
Yeah, we can probably, Gary and I could probably recount a half a dozen different stories surrounded by a bottle. So you have to remember the bottle first, and then you remember, what was that event that happened?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that was a Thanksgiving
Dad's
day,
80th.
up in the, or my dad's 80th birthday or something. But then but that was second to the Eagle Rare bottle that we brought up for that event.
Right, that was the Eagle Rare with the whole bottle. Yeah.
Yeah. So I truly appreciate that, and I think they have to make a bottle, excuse my French, but that says, "No shit, there I was." And that should be a bottle that has that brand on it, and so you can take it, and start off with a good story. with that.
I love that. We can make a white label.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, that'll be awesome. Gary and I, we have to come up with enough money to buy a barrel so
Yeah.
we can put our own label on it.
Yeah, quit buying whiskey.
I'm sure you'll have no problem.
I know we've kept you for almost 45 minutes already here, Barry. We have a couple quick hitters here, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know it's like picking your favorite child here, but of the RD1 brands, do you have a go-to typically that you lean towards, or is it just depends on the evening, the mood, the occasion?
Yeah, I'll tell you. This is what I tell. When people
Yeah.
ask me that question, you know how you go over to a friend's house and they open up their bourbon collection and they say, whatever you want,
Yeah.
Grab a pour. My favorite bourbon is that. So a friend that opens up their liquor
Yeah.
cabinet. My second favorite is the one I'm drinking. I'm a consumer, just like you guys. I'm a consumer. I love bourbon. I love to experiment. I like to blend. So I like
Yeah.
to mix and I like a single malt, and then I like to bring in a high
Nice.
rye. A high. Something that has a lot of character that may be fruit forward, sweet forward, or floral, spicy, and then
Jeez.
there you go, and then blend those together. But I'm a consumer.
Nice.
I like all bourbon. I can, Freddie told me you can find something good to say about something, and if you can't, don't
Right.
say anything at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah, I heard that from my mom too at some point, I think.
Yeah.
I think it was one really nice.
Yeah.
Quiet.
I remember a spanking
Oh,
I got one time from
yeah.
my mom. I forget. I'm sorry,
Yeah,
that was a long
exactly.
time ago.
Another quick hitter. What was your first whiskey of legal age that you remember?
Yep.
Legal
Yeah.
age.
All right. So I got to do air quotes. When I was
Yeah,
a legal
exactly.
age, Southern Comfort.
Classic.
Love some Southern Comfort.
Wow.
I can remember. I was a 6 year in high school, so I got to say that for the audio
Yep.
and the video here. But we would go down to Boonesboro, right on the Kentucky River, and we would have we'd have that Southern Comfort, and man, that goes down real easy. So for me, I like to say, if you live in Kentucky, bourbon is literally in your blood at an early age, and it represents $9 billion a year tourism revenue to the state. So we should all be bourbon ambassadors because when you look, especially now, I mean, we're in April. This is starting to become peak tourism season. People when I see people out, and I'm in liquor stores a lot.
Imagine that.
It's my job.
Yeah.
But I'll see people there, and I'll just ask them, where are you from? And I'll get people that say, I'm from outside the U.S. I'm from Australia. I'm from
Wow.
Michigan. I'm from Florida. And I'm like, well, thank you for coming to Kentucky. We really appreciate it. What are you looking for? And if someone's looking for a special bottle, obviously everybody's looking for Blanton's.
Oh,
no.
haters.
I'll try to hook them up. I've got a lot of good friends that are
Sure.
general managers at liquor stores, so I'll call them and say, "What do you got in the back? I've got a good friend here. Just met them. They're from Australia, looking for a bottle." But I mean, there's so many good bottles of bourbon out there that are
yes.
still on the shelf that are
definitely.
often
Yeah.
overlooked.
Yeah. Steve, you have one?
I like it.
Yeah.
Do I have what? A favorite bourbon? What?
No, a question, a quick hitter.
question.
I have one of you.
We asked them the quick hitters though. Okay, so I do have a question. Remember, you're on video
no,
now, Gary. So no gang signs or anything.
Sorry.
Don't throw those up. So again, we are trying to appeal to the novice whiskey drinker. The curious, novice whiskey enthusiast. There it is. Novice, curious whiskey enthusiast. Wow, look at that. It's on our shirt. I just have the Bourbon Bros shirt on. So we always like to ask this of experienced distillers, blenders, founders. Your advice for somebody getting into bourbon, and we see it all over social media saying, "Oh, I'm just getting in. Just what do you guys think of my collection? What here and there?" But just experiencing the bourbon culture, what would be your flat advice?
Yeah, great question.
Flat
I
out.
love that question. I think here's what I think. If you're bourbon curious and you're just getting into it, um, you need to surround yourselves with other like-minded individuals, and there's several ways of doing that. During COVID, remember how there was driveway drinking. We'd set out on our
Yeah.
driveway and
Yeah.
we'd drink. Also, there was Zoom drinking. There was these clubs that started
Yeah.
sprouting up. The ABV network out of St. Louis was one. And I watched them religiously, and would jump on their podcast, send them samples. We would taste. If there's a local bourbon club, and there's bourbon
Yep.
clubs all over, join a bourbon club.
Yeah.
Not all bourbon clubs are created equal, but most of them are all about the social aspect of getting together, drinking. The Lexington Bourbon Society, we believe in education, so we do a lot of blind tastings. When you're first getting into it, if you can do blind tastings, you take the marketing out of it. When consuming, there's four parts to consumption. There's visual. It's what you see on the bottle. It's what you see, the color, and then there's the aroma, and then the palate and the finish. You take the marketing out of it when you do blind tastings, and then you start to learn what you like. Get a book, write down everything that you taste, and eventually you're going to want to start. All right, what's the mash bill? So it's a lot of information, but if you're
Yeah.
super into it,
Yeah.
you're going to take a deeper dive. So if you take that deeper dive, you're going to start looking at, all right, I like this, and your palate evolves. When you first start drinking, you probably are going to drink 80 proof, 90 proof. It's probably hot enough for you. But as you continue to develop your palate, you're going to start jumping up in proof. You're going to start looking at more rye forward because they're a lot bolder, spicier. But that's not to say you want to jump into uncut, unfiltered when you first start. You need to do a lot of research, and that research is drinking. You need to drink a lot of bourbon. Now, if you want to become one of these people that can spout out different flavor profiles, you can do that. It just you got to drink every day. And I'm not saying drink to being trashed. I'm saying
Yeah.
drink maybe an ounce a day, have it neat
Yep.
poured, that's blind, and then reveal it, and then start writing down, okay, this one's a little hot for my palate. You don't have to talk in terms of tasting notes, but do
Yeah.
homework. So it depends on where you want to go with it. If you want to go
Right.
to where I really want to learn more about the industry, well, you know what? There's this course called the Certified Bourbon Steward course. You can do it online, and it's the Stave and Thief Society. Look it up, the Stave and Thief Society, Certified Bourbon Steward. You get a book, you read it front to back, you take an online test, and then you get this cool little
Oh, pin.
cross
Yes. Yep.
thief
Right.
pin. So that tells you that you're a certified bourbon steward. You have the baseline knowledge of what is bourbon, which is great, but it's a journey. We all are at some point in our walk with distilled spirits. I just love meeting people. I love meeting people, and my goal this year is to continue to grow the category. And what does that look like? Well, you and me, we got to consume more, but there's only so much consumption that we're doing our fair part. We've got to
We're good
figure
at
out.
that.
We're really good at
Spreading
it.
the good word.
But what can we
Yeah.
do to grow the category? So I was just in Austin, Texas this last week. I reached out to a girl, I didn't even know her. She has her Master of Whiskey. She's a Somm Level 3. And so I reached out to her because I saw her, she was in Austin. And I said, hey, I see that you do a lot of consumer events. Would you be willing to work with me to do some events? And she was like, okay, yeah, what are you thinking? And I said, well, I want to do an event with women. I want to have women have a safe environment where we can come in. We're gonna do cocktails. We're gonna do neat pours, but we're gonna do it to their level. So I don't want a bunch of people sitting around, just spouting off flavor notes. I want to talk to their level. So I did 2 events where I had 15 women, a few guys, and then the next event I did with her, we had 30 people there, and these were very engaged people that loved that weren't everyday bourbon consumers. But we made cocktails that they enjoyed. They learned a little bit about bourbon, and so for me, I want to grow the category. So I want to appeal to people that have the ability to consume more, and that's female. That's the younger 21 to 35. People kind of dog that age demographic, but when you look at that category, the majority of the folks in that demographic are under 21. So you can't really say that they're not consuming as much because a lot of those people are under 21. They're not legally able to consume. I think that when you look at what's going on in the industry now, it's a plateau.
Yeah.
We could never continue the amount of consumption that COVID what happened during COVID. So it is a correction. We're going to be fine, but unfortunately, a lot of brands that speculated on the industry that built distilleries to do contract distilling, that game's dried up. So it's the brands that have the amount of money to put into marketing to get distribution and awareness. They're going to do better than those brands that were just kind of speculating on. I'm going to throw an $80 bottle out there that nobody's heard of, and I don't know about you guys, but I'm gonna buy some bottles. That's kind of the market research I do, but the majority of consumers, they need to taste it before they buy it. And
Definitely.
So it depends on where you are in your walk, but I want to grow the category.
Awesome. Well, I'm just super glad that RD1 decided to distribute in Michigan. I was
we
going
have
to say
in
that.
Florida too. So
Yeah. Just like Willet for the first time is now distributing in Michigan. Like 2 weeks ago. Yay!
Yeah.
So I'm glad when a new distillery comes up and a brand that comes up and starts to come over in Michigan. There are some that are still not in Michigan. That from Kentucky, obviously. So Florida probably has them all.
We hate a lot. So we're doing our part, spreading the good word. Barry, you're doing your part, spreading the good word. Anything else about RD1 coming up in the future plans? We talked about the new distillery, the new visitor center there in Lexington, the Commons. Anything new, exciting on the horizon, new products, anything that we should be looking out for?
Yeah, I think that that new LTO, Sister City should hit the market in about 4 to 8 weeks. Look for that. 1,500 cases, $69 retail. It's priced to move. It won't be around long. So we will have an online retailer that you'll be able to get it, but it's going to be in every market that we're in. That'll be here and gone. We are sampling this week our new fall LTO, so I don't really have any information there. You should follow us on the Google RD1spirits.com. We're on Facebook and Instagram. We haven't gone the TikTok route, but we're there's only so many. We've got one marketing leader, and she covers the whole U.S. market like I do. So her and I work together. But yeah, we're super excited. We're looking, what more can Kentucky bourbon do? We're going to figure it out, and we're going to be a part of the the success of Kentucky.
And we'll
bourbon.
be following right along. I mean, we're locked in. We're very excited about the future as well. Not only bourbon industry, but RD1. So we'll be following everything right along with you. Steve, anything else for Barry?
Like it a lot.
Right.
No, thanks for the pour, by the way. Thanks for everything that agreeing to come on with us and spread a lot of knowledge and education. It's been just a joy talking to you, Barry. Thanks so much.
You're welcome. Why don't you email me both of your addresses? I'll make sure to get you that LTO sample. Yes. You're definitely going to want to taste it.
Of course. Oh, I think we definitely will want to as well.
All right, everybody.
Awesome.
Again, Barry from RD1. Please go ahead and buy some RD1. Visit Lexington. Check out RD1's distillery coming here, the new one at the Commons. And thanks again for listening to the podcast. Good night, everybody. Good morning.
Awesome. Good night.
Barry.
Good night.
Good night.
Cheers.
Giddy up.
Enjoy.
Giddy up.
All right. We'll see you.